Welcome back to AIPOP.
where we take your requests
That's right.
and deep dive into the topics you want to explore.
And today we're diving into the world
We are.
of an acting legend.
Yes.
Someone you specifically requested.
That's right.
Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken.
It's funny, isn't it? I feel like everyone has tried to do a Christopher Walken impression
Oh, yeah.
at some point.
Absolutely.
Like a rite of passage.
That voice, that cadence.
Oh, totally.
It's so unique
Yeah.
and recognizable.
You know what's interesting?
What's that?
In this recent interview with The Independent,
Okay.
Walken actually talks about people doing impressions of him
Mm-hmm.
to his face.
Yeah.
He seems a bit bemused by it all.
Which I think adds another layer to his mystique.
Oh, totally.
Like, he's aware of the persona, the effect he has on people,
Right.
but he doesn't seem to take it too seriously.
It's like he's in on the joke,
Right.
but also
Yeah.
slightly detached from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that sense of detachment,
Uh-huh.
that enigmatic quality,
Right.
it's something that permeates his career as well.
Totally. Speaking of his career,
Yes.
he's been getting a lot of buzz lately for his role
He has.
in Severance
Yeah.
on Apple TV+.
It's a good show.
It's such a good show.
Yeah.
It's really mind-bending
Yeah.
about this company where employees have their work memories
Right.
completely separated from their personal memories.
It's wild.
Wild. And
Yeah.
what's fascinating
Yeah.
is that Walken plays this character named Bert,
Yeah.
who is described as,
Yeah.
quote, a nice, romantic person,
I love that.
which is so different
Yeah.
from the roles
Very different.
we're used to seeing him in.
Yeah.
He's practically made a career
Right.
out of playing
Totally.
intense,
Yeah.
often villainous characters.
Right. And this isn't just a departure in terms of personality.
No.
It's also significant because Bert is Walken's first openly gay character.
Oh, wow. Didn't realize that.
Yeah.
What does he say about taking on this kind of role?
Well, in the interview, he's very matter-of-fact about it.
Really?
He says,
Okay.
people love each other.
Wow.
It's almost like he's surprised it's even a topic of discussion.
That's so Christopher Walken, though.
It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Just completely unfazed by something that might be considered
Yeah.
controversial or groundbreaking
And other actors, yeah.
for other actors.
It speaks to his approach to acting, I think.
Oh, yeah?
He's not afraid to inhabit different characters,
Oh,
even
yeah.
if they challenge expectations or push boundaries.
And in a way, it makes you wonder if his reputation for playing intense characters
Mm-hmm.
is just that, a reputation.
Right.
Maybe he's been typecast,
Interesting.
even though he's capable of so much more.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
He does say in the interview that playing Bert was a nice change of pace because he's
Uh-huh.
so used to playing people who are troubled, to say the least.
It makes you want to go back and rewatch
It does.
some of his earlier films with fresh eyes.
Absolutely. Think about his roles in Annie Hall or The Deer Hunter.
Oh, my gosh.
Those are some of his first major roles.
Yeah.
And they really established him as an actor who could portray
Yeah.
deeply troubled, even disturbing characters.
And then, of course, you have those iconic villain roles,
You do.
pushing Michelle Pfeiffer out a window in Batman Returns,
Yeah.
the Headless Horseman in Sleepy Hollow.
Class.
He's become almost synonymous with a certain kind of unsettling, offbeat character.
But then in contrast to all that,
Right.
you have Walken himself insisting that he's actually a very normal person in real life.
Yeah.
Married for over 50 years,
Wow.
pays his bills, lives a quiet life.
It's that juxtaposition
Extra
that
living.
makes him so fascinating.
Totally.
And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the world of Christopher Walken so far,
Yeah.
don't forget to like and subscribe to the AIPOP podcast.
Yeah.
We've got plenty more fascinating insights coming your way.
We do.
But back to Walken. This interview also gives us a glimpse into his acting process.
Uh-huh.
And it's not what I expected at all.
Really? What do you mean?
Well, he says his favorite part of acting is actually the solitary process
Okay.
of studying and learning his lines.
Interesting.
He can take forever to learn them,
Oh, wow.
but he loves standing in his kitchen,
Okay.
working through the script.
It's funny to picture him pacing around his kitchen,
I know.
muttering lines to himself.
Right. It's so unexpected.
It is.
But it also speaks to his dedication to the craft.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why he has no plans to retire anytime soon.
Right.
He says acting is all he knows. It's
Yeah.
his life's work.
Right.
Unlike Sean Connery.
Yeah.
He doesn't play golf.
There's a real sense that he just loves the work.
Right.
The process of embodying a character.
Totally.
No matter how big or small the role might be.
And speaking of iconic roles, we can't talk about Christopher Walken without mentioning his collaborations with Quentin Tarantino.
Ah, yes, the Tarantino connection.
Yeah.
Their work together has produced some of the most memorable scenes in cinematic history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this interview gives us a peek behind the curtain how their relationship began.
Okay.
It turns out they were introduced by Harvey Keitel
Interesting.
back when Tarantino was just starting out.
Yeah, Walken describes a young Tarantino,
Yeah.
almost like a shy teenager,
Wow.
brought to meet him at the Chateau Marmont.
That's wild.
It is.
To think of Tarantino as a shy newcomer.
Yeah.
I wonder what Walken's first impression of him was.
Right.
Did he have any inkling
Did he?
of the visionary filmmaker Tarantino would become?
He did describe him as an Orson Wellesian teenager.
Oh, wow.
So perhaps he sensed that there was something special about him.
I love that description.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
It is.
So let's talk about their actual work together.
Okay.
I mean, Walken has delivered some of the most legendary monologues
He has.
in Tarantino's films.
Uh-huh.
Starting with that incredible speech about the Sicilian mafia in True Romance.
Oh, that scene is pure cinematic gold.
So good.
Yeah.
The way Walken builds the tension,
Right.
the subtle shifts in his voice,
Uh-huh.
and then, of course, the unforgettable ending.
And then there's the equally iconic watch story in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's somehow both hilarious
Here it
and deeply moving.
What's interesting is that Walken takes his preparation for these roles incredibly seriously.
I bet.
He mentions spending months learning the Pulp Fiction speech,
Wow.
which was apparently 8 pages long.
What?
He would practice it for an hour every day,
Wow.
no matter what else he was doing.
That's dedication.
It is.
And did you know that his meticulous preparation actually made Tarantino a little uncomfortable?
Yeah, Tarantino has said that he felt embarrassed and even intimidated by how seriously Walken took his writing. He was almost overwhelmed by the respect Walken showed for his work.
That's a pretty incredible compliment.
It is.
Coming from a director as acclaimed as Tarantino
Yeah.
speaks volumes about Walken's professionalism
Yeah.
and his commitment to bringing those words to life.
Indeed.
And speaking of bringing things to life,
Yeah.
this interview also touches on some really fascinating
Mm.
aspects of Walken's personal life.
Okay.
Did you know that in addition to being a child actor,
Uh-huh.
he actually ran away to join the circus
Really?
at one point
Wow.
and even tamed lions?
That's straight out of a Hollywood movie.
I know.
It's true.
Unbelievable.
And it gets even better.
Okay.
Apparently, he was good friends with Madonna and Sean Penn back in the day.
Oh my gosh, that's such a classic 80s Hollywood pairing.
It is.
What was their friendship like?
Well, he doesn't go into too much detail.
Okay.
But he does mention attending their wedding,
Right.
which he described as the noisiest wedding I've ever been to.
I can only imagine. Knowing their personalities, it must have been quite the spectacle.
It must have been.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Madonna,
Yes.
Sean Penn,
Yeah.
and Christopher Walken.
Right?
It's like the setup for some bizarre 80s comedy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it gets even more bizarre
Okay.
because he mentions that Madonna later cast him as the Angel of Death
Oh my God.
in one of her music videos.
No way.
Only Christopher Walken could pull that off
Oh my gosh.
with such, well, Walken-esque charm.
This is unbelievable.
I know.
I need to see this music video.
You do.
We've covered so much ground already,
We have.
and there's still more to unpack from this interview,
There is.
but we'll have to save that for part 2.
We will. Welcome back to the AIPOP podcast. We're picking up our deep dive right where we left off with the one and only Christopher Walken.
That's right, and we're still unraveling this amazing interview he did with The Independent. You know, before the break, we were talking about Madonna,
We were.
casting him as the Angel of Death in one of her music videos.
Oh, it's so good.
It really paints a picture of those wild, anything-goes days of 80s Hollywood, doesn't it?
Right.
I mean, you've got Madonna,
You do.
Sean Penn,
Yeah.
Christopher Walken,
Right.
all together.
Right.
You couldn't script that.
It's like a fever dream of 80s pop culture.
Totally. But it makes you wonder, how did he go from taming lions in the circus
Right, yeah.
to rubbing elbows with Hollywood royalty?
Well, in the interview, Walken talks about how his early experiences shaped him
Yeah.
as a performer, starting as a child actor, running away to join the circus.
Yeah.
It all contributed to his unique perspective on life and his approach to acting.
It's like he absorbed all these different
He
experiences
did.
and channeled them into his work.
Right.
And it seems like those early years also instilled in him a strong work ethic.
They did.
Remember how he talked about spending months memorizing that 8-page monologue for Pulp Fiction?
Absolutely. And he wasn't just memorizing lines, he was really digging into the character.
Right.
Understanding the nuances of Tarantino's dialogue.
Yeah.
It's no wonder Tarantino was so impressed, even intimidated by his dedication.
It speaks to a level of professionalism that you don't always see in Hollywood,
You don't.
especially from actors who have achieved Walken's level of fame. He could easily coast on his reputation,
He could.
but he still approaches every role with the same intensity and commitment.
And that commitment shines through in his performances.
Yeah.
Whether he's playing a larger-than-life villain
Right.
or a more subtle, introspective character like Bert in Severance.
You know, speaking of Severance, it's interesting to hear him talk about taking on a nice character
It is?
for a change. It makes you wonder if he ever gets tired
Right.
of being typecast as the villain
Yeah.
or the eccentric oddball.
He doesn't explicitly say that in the interview,
Right.
but you can sense a hint of weariness when he talks about being used to playing people who are troubled.
Oh, good.
It's like he's ready to show audiences that he has more to offer.
And he's definitely capable of it. We've seen glimpses of his range in films like Catch Me If You Can,
We have.
where he played Leonardo DiCaprio's father.
Yeah.
It was a much more grounded, emotionally resonant performance
Right.
than we're used to seeing from him.
Exactly. And that's why Severance is so intriguing.
Right.
It's a chance for him to break out of that typecasting
Yeah.
and explore new facets of his talent.
Totally.
Plus, working with a visionary director like Ben Stiller
Oh, yeah.
is always a draw.
I'm curious to see what other unexpected roles he might take on in the future.
Me too.
Maybe a romantic comedy
Oh.
or a heartwarming family drama.
Now that would be a sight to see.
The possibilities are endless with Christopher Walken.
It's funny, we've been talking about all these iconic roles and directors,
Yeah.
but there's one crucial detail we haven't mentioned yet.
What's that?
His real name.
Oh, right. Ronnie Walken. It's so strange to think of him by any other name.
It's like a secret identity.
Right.
A glimpse into a completely different persona.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, how did Ronnie become Christopher?
Well, according to the interview,
Yeah.
he was advised to change his name by a nightclub dancer
Right.
back in the early 1960s.
A nightclub dancer.
Eh,
Talk about a random origin story for a stage name.
I know, right?
But somehow it fits perfectly with the whole Christopher Walken mystique.
It does.
It adds another layer to the enigma, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like even his name has a story,
Right.
a history that we can only speculate about.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what makes him so enduringly fascinating.
Absolutely. He's a man of mystery, even down to his name. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the world of Christopher Walken as much as we are,
Yeah.
don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the AIPOP podcast
Yes, please do that.
for more fascinating conversations like this one.
We got a lot more to come. But let's get back to the interview.
Okay.
We were talking about names,
We were.
and it reminded me of something else he said.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting that he still goes by Ronnie
He does.
with his close friends and family.
Yeah, that's a really personal detail to share.
It is,
It suggests that despite his fame and iconic status,
right?
there's still a part of him that's grounded, connected to his roots.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. It humanizes him.
It does.
Reminds us that even Christopher Walken has a private life,
Right.
an inner circle where he's just Ronnie.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's that duality that makes him so compelling, I think. The mystery and the familiarity, the intensity and the humor.
Right.
It all blends together to create this incredibly unique and captivating persona.
And that persona has captivated audiences for decades.
Yeah.
From his early days on Broadway
Yeah.
to his iconic film roles and now his groundbreaking work in Severance.
Right.
Christopher Walken continues to surprise and delight us.
It's a testament to his talent, his longevity,
Yeah.
and his willingness to push boundaries.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive, it makes you wonder, what is it about Christopher Walken
Yeah.
that continues to resonate with audiences after all these years?
That's a great question. We'll delve into that and more when we come back for part 3 of our Christopher Walken deep dive,
That's right.
right here on the AIPOP podcast.
Welcome back to the AIPOP podcast for the thrilling conclusion of our Christopher Walken deep dive.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has.
From his circus days to his iconic film roles and everything in between.
And before the break, we posed a question.
We did.
To you, dear listener.
Right.
What is it about Christopher Walken that continues to resonate with audiences after all these years?
That's a good question.
Right. It's a question worth pondering.
It is. I think it's a combination of factors.
Yeah.
His distinctive voice, of course, is part of his allure. It's so unique, so instantly recognizable, but it goes beyond that.
Right. It's not just the voice.
Right.
It's how he uses it.
Uh-huh.
The pauses, the inflections, the way he can deliver a line and make it both menacing and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah. Precisely. He has this incredible ability to find the humor in the darkness.
Right.
The absurdity in the mundane.
And let's not forget his physicality.
Oh, no.
The way he moves, the intensity of his gaze.
Oh, yeah.
It's mesmerizing.
It's almost like he's channeling something otherworldly.
Yeah.
And yet there's also a vulnerability, a gentleness that peeks through at times.
Yes, especially in roles like Bert in Severance.
Right.
It's as if he's letting us see behind the mask.
Yeah.
Revealing a more human side to this enigmatic figure.
And I think that's what keeps audiences coming back for more.
Totally.
We're drawn to the mystery, but we also crave the connection. We want to understand this complex, contradictory man who can be both terrifying and endearing.
And the fact that he doesn't try to explain himself, that he maintains a certain air of mystery, only adds to the intrigue.
Absolutely. He's not interested in crafting a carefully curated public image.
Right.
He just is who he is.
Yeah.
And he lets his work speak for itself.
And that work is a testament to his talent.
It is.
And his dedication to the craft of acting.
Yeah.
He's been in the business for over 6 decades.
Yes.
And he's still pushing boundaries. Still taking on challenging and unexpected roles.
It's inspiring, really.
It is.
He could easily rest on his laurels.
Yeah.
But he continues to explore new territory, to challenge himself as an artist.
And that's what makes him such an enduring icon.
He is.
He's not afraid to evolve, to take risks, to keep us guessing.
Right.
And in a world that's constantly changing, that's a quality we can all admire.
Totally. So, as we conclude this deep dive into the world of Christopher Walken, what have we learned?
I think we've learned that he's a true original.
He is.
A one-of-a-kind talent who has captivated audiences for generations.
And we've learned that behind the iconic voice and the enigmatic persona lies a dedicated artist, a man who takes his craft seriously but doesn't take himself too seriously.
And most importantly, we've learned that Christopher Walken is a reminder that sometimes most fascinating people are the ones who embrace their quirks, their individuality, and their refusal to be easily defined.
Beautifully said.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Christopher Walken as much as we did,
I hope so.
Don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to the AIPOP podcast for more insightful conversations.
Please do.
And until next time,
keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
Yes.